I feel I need to address what just happened in San Diego at the synagogue shooting. I believe that Loree McBride is responsible for that. In fact, have you noticed something? Have you noticed we've had an uptick in mass shootings starting in 2017? Do you know when Loree McBride came to power as the Jesuit leader? I would say about March 2017. I don't think it's a coincidence that we've had an increase in mass shootings since Loree McBride has come to power as the Jesuit leader. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that one of her primary reasons for orchestrating the Candida Auris, she's dropping bombs worldwide, making everybody sick with Candida Auris. You might say, why would she do that? What is she going to get out of this? What she gets out of it is brain control. Candida auris has an affinity for the nervous system, but it can infect your gastrointestinal tract. But Jesus told me that if I wasn't on Seroquel, what would happen to me is the Candida auris would take over my entire nervous system and I would turn febrile. I would be crawling around on all fours in my apartment, and my obsession would be to circumcise men. So if anybody came into my apartment, I would latch onto their penis with my mouth and literally circumcise them. And I would be, and it would be I would turn schizophrenic because of the Candida auris infection to my nervous system. This germ is deadly in more ways than one. It can give you physical illness that can kill you. I don't know if you can see this or not. Have you noticed I got terrible recession? You know what's caused that? Candida auris. I've been infected with this germ since the 1980s. The Jesuits I was the guinea pig. They started with me. And now, because they've been so successful in causing all sorts of problems with me, if I didn't use my Sonicare electric toothbrush every day and I didn't floss and diligently keep my teeth clean, I would probably be in dentures right now because of Candida auris. In fact, these two crowns that I have on my bottom, that's because of Candida auris. Candida auris is one of its favorite foods is calcium. And when you have an infection, it literally leaches calcium from your bones, from your cells, and steals all the calcium so that even if you are eating and drinking dairy products and getting your calcium, if you have a serious Candida auris infection, you will literally have a vitamin mineral deficiency in all the vitamin minerals that the Candida auris yeast germ needs to survive. It survives off of calcium, magnesium, and just about every single nutrient that the human body needs to survive. And that's how it kills people. But while it's infecting them, it has an affinity for the nervous system. And if a person has a serious Candida auris brain infection, then the Jesuits are able to use their technology, sort of like MKULTRA, to brain control that person to do their bidding. They did it with Rick Scott several years ago, where he got an infection to his brain, and he was lying and telling everybody that I was against Publix. When I first became an empress in 2014, he was against me. He's changed, but we were able to Baker Act him, get him into a psychiatric ward, and put him on Seroquel and cure him of his brain infection, so he's okay now. But back in 2014, he had a Candida, I believe it was Candida auris, a Candida auris brain infection. And I am going to propose something to you. If Candida auris is able to cause people to develop schizophrenia, then it could turn them into paranoid schizophrenics. I allege that every mass shooter that we've had, that you've heard about in the news, Las Vegas, the Pittsburgh synagogue, the one in near San Diego just recently, that Loree McBride is the murderer. She has created, I would call them unwilling agents. In other words, what she does is she targets people in the population who have a Candida auris brain infection, and then she uses brain control on them, which the Candida auris infection enables her to do, and she treats them like MKULTRA victims. She literally, like pulling strings on a puppet, directs these people to kill, to go do mass shootings. And I believe what happens is when you get a Candida auris brain infection, you become a schizophrenic. And you can't separate your reality and your delusions. So you start believing crazy things. So this San Diego shooter apparently started believing a lot of bad things about Jewish people. And that's because Loree McBride directed his thoughts and his actions and manipulated him to using I want you to investigate that shooter and find out if he had a Candida auris brain infection. I bet he did. Not only that, I want you to investigate the Las Vegas shooters, and I believe there was more than one Las Vegas shooter. I want you to investigate every shooter, every mass shooter involved behind all the mass shootings that we've had since Loree McBride has come to power, and find out if they had a Candida auris brain infection. If they did, then we are going to execute the Loree McBride Jesuits responsible for inducing that infection in these people. And we're going to treat the killer with, we're going to cure them of their Candida auris brain infection and see if we can get them to be sane. And under my conspiracy law, if somebody commits a crime unwillingly, in other words, their brain was taken over by the Jesuits to cause them to do something that they wouldn't have done if their brain hadn't been taken over, then they are not guilty of murder. The one who's guilty of murder is the one who induced their insanity in them. Now that is true justice. We are not going to solve these problems by using a Band-Aid and treating the symptoms and not the cause. The symptoms are people who have a Candida auris brain infection, and then Loree McBride, who's the real killer, uses her brain control on that person to do her bidding. So the person who needs to be executed, of course, unfortunately, sometimes we have to execute these killers in order to save lives. But let's say they didn't die and they're in prison. What we need to do, find out if they have a Candida auris brain infection, or if they did at the time they committed their crimes. Okay? If they had a Candida auris brain infection, we need to find out, we need to add that onto the lawsuit that we already have against the Loree McBride Jesuits for Candida auris. And they are, the Loree McBride Jesuits will, if we have to seize all their bank accounts, we'll do it. They are going to pay damages to all the victims of all the people that were killed by these MKUltra Candida auris. I would call them, even though they're murderers, I would call them victims too, because they developed a mental illness because of Loree McBride. The solution to the mass murders is not to take the guns from the people, but to cure the mental illness that Loree McBride caused that led the killer to do what they did. You could take all the guns away from people. That's not going to stop them. They're going to get the guns one way or another, as long as they're mentally ill. The cure is you need to cure the mental illness. That's the solution. And it can be done. We need to stop Loree from dropping these bombs. I believe that most of the mass killers behind the mass shootings that we're hearing about on the news have a Candida auris brain infection. And Loree McBride and her pack of slimy Jesuits are using a very sophisticated MKUltra type of brain control that uses the Candida auris brain infection to enhance their ability to manipulate that person to do murder or whatever they want them to do. Okay? If the killer had a Candida auris brain infection, and we can prove in court that they were manipulated against their will to commit these crimes, they will not be executed for murder. Instead, we will execute the person who gave them the infection and who was manipulating their brain. And I want those executions to be public on the Gabrielle Chana FOX news station. But before you take them out, seize all their bank accounts, seize all their financial assets, get all their credit cards. They are not allowed to conduct any commerce. We're going to monitor them 24/7, and we're going to make sure that we can see where all their money comes from. We're going to snatch their assets, and we're going to force them to pay damages to the victims of these crimes that they orchestrated, including the family of the person who committed the murders, if they were an unwilling agent. This is justice. Loree McBride, I allege that every single mass killer that we've had from 2017 onwards has either been a Loree McBride Jesuit themselves, a willing and knowing Loree McBride Jesuit, like the Kathy Griffin, the person who worshipped Kathy Griffin at the that killed all those senators and representatives. Yeah, you didn't hear about this in the news, but they killed every single Democratic congressman. And then they also got that one Republican congressman who actually died. And you're seeing his automaton in the news. So the news doesn't report Loree McBride's death tolls in the millions. The news is underreporting what's going on with Candida Auris. I believe that millions of people are sick with it, which means Loree McBride has a pool, probably out of those millions, there's probably thousands that have a Candida Auris brain infection. So Loree McBride can just choose at random who she wants to manipulate to commit the next mass shooting. We need to scan the population, and anybody who's got a Candida Auris infection, with the top priority being those who have a brain infection, need to be Baker acted and treated with Seroquel and made well. Because anybody with a Candida Auris brain infection has the potential to become the next mass shooter. The problem, the way we're going to solve the mass shootings is not by taking the guns. It's by rounding up everybody who has a Candida Auris brain infection, Baker acting them. That's Florida law. We're going to make it international law. Baker acting them, forcing them to get on Seroquel, treating them of their infection so that Loree McBride Jesuits cannot manipulate that person like their puppet to go out and murder. Loree McBride has come up with a very sophisticated form of murder using the Candida Auris yeast. By giving people brain infections in fact, that's, I allege, her primary motive for infecting the population, so that she can use brain control. Brain control is Loree McBride's specialty. So men, as U.S. Empress, I'm going to make it law. I'm just making a video to tell you, oh, I'm sneezing right now from this Candida Auris. She's still dropping those bombs. She won't quit. Go after that woman's hide. We're going to sue her butt off. We're going to seize all the financial accounts. We need all the militaries all over the world to join with us to take down her space fleet, because she's using her space fleet to drop these bombs everywhere. It's now law that if anybody has a Candida Auris brain infection, they need to be Baker acted and treated so they don't become the next mass killer. And we need to conduct an investigation behind every mass shooting that we've had since 2017 to find out if they were an MKULTRA Candida Auris brain control victim. Loree McBride is using the Candida Auris germ to assist her with MKULTRA brain control. And then she literally commits murder using these people as her puppets, whereas they lose control of their own will, and she literally takes over their brain. This is what she did with the real Brent Spiner. So he made love to Loree thinking he was making love to me. He was a brain control victim. And she's gone to town with this. And every time she creates a brain control victim, it's always to make her look good and her enemies look bad. And the solution, we got it, like I said, do an investigation behind every mass killing, find out if they had a Candida Auris brain infection and if MKUltra was used. And then we're going to go after the real killers. This bitch needs to be stopped.